I've been sea kayaking for decades, and done a lot of trips that have taken many weeks and covered hundreds of miles. But even so, I still get a kick out of just getting out on the water for a few hours on a sunny afternoon, working my arms and being rocked in the kayak as if I was in a cradle. But there are times when I want to travel a little differently, when I want to balance the karma for all those hours I've spent paddling into headwinds. Then it's time to raise the sail. It's always a magic moment when the wind irons the sail into a smooth, arced airfoil, and the kayak leaps forward like a racehorse eager to clear the starting gate. On tour, a sail can be much more than a way to get a free or assisted ride. It can be a real safety aid. I was at the halfway point of this 14 nautical mile open water crossing when I got pounced from behind by a squall. With the sail up, I was not only able to run for cover faster, but the additional speed meant I was at much less risk of being broached by overtaking seas. Here's another, slightly less extreme example.
So we are about halfway across to Finn Island. 2.2 nautical miles out of 4.4 nautical miles. We've got some whitecaps. We've got some wind, but the wind actually is helping because I've got my sail up and it's adding about a knot to my speed, which means I'll be off Squally Sound that much faster.
There's a very human impulse to anthropomorphize the elements. We talk about a cruel sea, or capricious waves, or a kindly sun. But in truth, of course, the elements are neither good nor evil, just indifferent. I take real pleasure in understanding those elements, and turning them to my own ends. The same wind that stirs up the waves which threaten to capsize me can also speed me safely home if I use it intelligently. Even when the wind is in a favorable direction, there isn't always enough of it to move you along at a worthwhile speed. The solution's obvious. Break out a second sail. It seems to me that sailing a sea kayak is seafaring, simplified, purified, and brought back to its roots. You are captain and crew, helmsman and navigator, all in one. Even here in the temperate latitudes of the Pacific Northwest, on those special days when the sun is out, the breeze is warm, and the water is turquoise, it can feel like sailing in the tropics. After several years of successful downwind and crosswind sailing, I was hooked, and I wanted to see if I could adapt my boat to sail upwind. I already had a tossed leeboard, essentially a rectangular aluminum plate. It hangs on the downwind side of the boat and allows me to sail further offwind. I hoped it would work for upwind as well. I made the mast from sections of sawed-off paddle shaft from old broken paddles. I reinforced the underside of the rear deck just behind the cockpit with an additional layer of fiberglass and a plastic plate, then added a fishing rod holding fixture. I used a rod holder extender as an upright, slipping it into the bottom of the hollow mast. The first generation of my rear deck sail was simply a second-hand laser sail, cut down and sewn to fit. For these first forays into upwind sailing, I simply pulled my existing Pacific action sail backwards into a sort of pseudo-jib. The sea trials of this improvised setup made me smile. It was rude, it was crude, it was funny to look at, and it was working. The success of this simple setup had gotten me hooked, so the following winter's project was sewing a proper yellow jib and a matching yellow mainsail. Even though I understand the underlying physics, at least in my layperson's hazy way, there's something almost supernatural about sailing to windward. Just watching that bow cleave through the oncoming waves seems like defying gravity. The upwind sail rig has proved to be a lot of fun for messing around on day trips, but the nature of upwind sailing is that it's a lot tippier than downwind sailing, so it takes continual leaning, which is the kayaker's equivalent of hiking out, and/or a lot of aggressive bracing to keep the boat upright. So it won't be practical for touring until I get around to building an outrigger. Until I get around to building that outrigger, I'll have to borrow my buddy Mike's boat as a sort of improvised outrigger. He doesn't seem to mind too much in exchange for a free ride to wherever we're going. And that's a look at the story so far on my experiments with kayak sails. I don't know what my future kayaking will look like, but I know that sails will be a big part of it.